Jason never expected his life to fall apart in a single moment. But when he discovered the truth that his wife, Emily, had been cheating on him, everything shattered. 8 years of love, trust, and devotion were reduced to nothing more than a cruel joke. He could still hear her laughter, still see the way she looked at him, pretending to be the loyal wife while sneaking around behind his back. But Jason wasn't a fool. He refused to be the man who stayed. So, he walked away. He thought that was the end of it, until everyone around him started pushing him to meet her again. But why? What could she possibly say to undo the damage she had done? The moment Jason found out about his wife's betrayal, it felt like the air had been sucked out of his lungs. He stood frozen, staring at the incriminating text messages flashing across his phone screen. Messages filled with secrets, whispered confessions, and undeniable proof that his wife, Emily, had been cheating on him. They had been married for 8 years, 8 years of devotion, love, and trust, all shattered in a single moment. His fingers trembled as he scrolled through the messages, reading her words to another man, someone Jason had never met. They spoke of stolen moments, secret meetings, and a future that didn't include him. Jason clenched his jaw, his heart pounding with betrayal. He could have confronted her immediately, but something inside him held him back. He needed to think, to process, to decide what his next move would be. The next few days were torture. Emily carried on as if nothing was wrong, completely unaware that Jason had discovered her secret. Every moment he spent in the same house with her felt like a lie, every word she spoke like an insult to the life they had built together. One evening, as Emily stood at the sink washing dishes, Jason finally broke his silence. "Who is he?" he asked, his voice eerily calm. Emily froze, her hands gripping the edges of the sink. What are you talking about?" she stammered. Jason placed his phone on the counter, the incriminating messages still on the screen. Her face paled as she read them, her breath catching in her throat. "I can explain," she whispered. He shook his head. "I don't need an explanation. I need you to leave." Tears welled up in her eyes, but Jason had already made up his mind. He wasn't going to be the fool who stayed. He wasn't going to be the man who forgave a betrayal this deep. That night, Emily packed her things and left. And just like that, Jason was alone. In the days that followed, the news of their separation spread like wildfire. Friends and family called him, asking what had happened. Some sympathized, while others, much to his surprise, seemed to take Emily's side. "You should hear her out," one of his old friends insisted. Maybe it was a mistake. Jason scoffed at the idea. A mistake? A mistake didn't happen over and over again, behind someone's back. His own mother, always the peacemaker, urged him to meet with Emily one last time. "You need closure," she said gently. "And maybe, just maybe, there's something you don't know." At first, Jason refused. He had no interest in reopening wounds that were still raw. But as the days passed, curiosity got the better of him. What could she possibly say to justify what she had done? Finally, he agreed to meet her. The cafe was quiet when he arrived, the soft hum of conversations filling the air. Emily was already there, sitting at a corner table, looking nervous. Jason sat down across from her, crossing his arms. "You have 5 minutes." She hesitated before speaking. "I made a mistake, Jason." He chuckled bitterly. "A mistake? That's an understatement." Emily sighed, her eyes filled with regret. "I was lost, and I made a terrible decision. But I never stopped loving you." Jason shook his head. "You don't do that to someone you love." She reached for his hand, but he pulled away. "Please," she whispered. "I know I don't deserve another chance, but I just wanted you to know how sorry I am." He studied her, searching for sincerity. Maybe she was sorry. Maybe she did regret everything. But that didn't change the fact that she had destroyed their marriage. "I appreciate the apology," Jason said, standing up. "But I've already moved on." Tears spilled down Emily's cheeks, but he didn't stay to watch. As he stepped out of the cafe, A sense of finality washed over him. The door swung shut behind him, muffling the quiet sobs that still echoed inside. He exhaled deeply, feeling both heavy and weightless at the same time, like something had finally been set free. Yet a part of him still clung to what once was. The cold evening air hit him as he stepped onto the sidewalk, making him realize just how long he had been inside. The weight of their conversation settled in his chest, but he didn't turn back. He knew that if he did, he would see her still sitting there, wiping her tears, waiting for something that wasn't going to come. His footsteps were steady, but his mind wasn't. Memories flooded back, late-night talks, the way she used to laugh at his bad jokes, the warmth of her hand in his. But none of that mattered now. That version of them was gone, shattered the moment she chose deception over honesty. He had spent months agonizing over what went wrong, wondering if he could have done something differently. But tonight, as he watched her struggle to explain, to justify, to apologize, he realized that the past couldn't be rewritten. And he no longer wanted to. A gust of wind carried the scent of coffee and warm pastries from a nearby bakery, a cruel contrast to the cold emptiness inside him. He shoved his hands into his coat pockets and kept walking, forcing himself to focus on the rhythm of his steps rather than the ache in his heart. She had been his world once. Now, she was just a chapter 1 he had finally closed. Yet, even as he walked away, there was a lingering weight in his chest, a dull ache where love had once thrived. The past wasn't something he could erase, nor did he want to. It had shaped him, taught him, and now it had freed him. The city lights blurred as he moved through the streets, lost in thought. He had imagined this moment so many times, the final conversation, the last goodbye. He thought he'd feel victorious, strong, maybe even indifferent. But emotions were never that simple. There was no joy in walking away, only the quiet acceptance that he had no other choice. Emily had begged for another chance, but trust was like glass once shattered. No amount of apologies could put it back together the same way. He had given her his heart, his loyalty, and she had gambled it away for something fleeting. Now, she was left with regret, and he was left with the pieces of a life they had once built together. As he turned the corner, a deep breath filled his lungs. This was the start of something new, and for the first time in a long time, he was ready to embrace it. For the first time in weeks, he felt free. He had closed the chapter, and he was ready for whatever came next.